Over the last few weeks, we have addressed a number of questions that have been pretty large, popular cultural questions and issues and concerns. And if you're new with us or just kind of jumping in, let me catch you up to how we got here, how we got to the place that we are with this questions and answers. A few weeks back, for our Easter gathering, we closed our gathering by my just simply asking, hey, will you please put yourself on a scale? You don't have to say where you're at out loud or raise your hands or do any of those open admitting type things. Just put yourself on a scale in terms of where you're at with the resurrection. And so the scale is 1 to 5. And so we defined a 1 as someone on a scale who says, you know what, in terms of Jesus and the life of Jesus and the story of Jesus, I'm a 1. And that means that I believe that the story of Jesus is kind of like a Disney movie. That it feels good. Maybe there's some life lessons that we can pull from it. There's some things that kind of just teach us a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's no more true than Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and all those things. Like, it's just a really great story. So that's what a 1 looks like. Or the other end of the scale would be a 5. And so when we look at a 5 would be defined as someone who believes that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and that he lived in the first third of the first century, that he was a real Palestinian Jew right there in what we know today as the Middle East. And he died on a cross at the hands of the Romans, at the encouragement of the religious leaders in Judaism of the day. And then he hung on the cross until he was physically, medically dead. No heartbeat, no brain function, oxygen is done. It completely dead. And that body was taken off the cross and put into a tomb where it sat until Sunday in decay. And then on Sunday morning, that process of decay was reversed, and that Jesus started to breathe again, and his brain started functioning again, and his heart started beating again, and he stood up in the tomb, and he walked out where there was a stone that was rolled away. And that he, because of his ability to not only conquer death, but also life, altogether allows him to take that title as Son of God, Redeemer, Rescuer. And with that, he's made a promise that I have gone to prepare a place for you, and I am coming back for my church. Right? So that's what a 5 looks like. And so we just said, hey, put yourself on the scale. 1 to 5, where are you? And then we followed that question up with, once everyone's kind of self-identified, hey, this is where I'm at on that scale, we just simply ask the question, hey, is there a question about faith or the Bible or anything for that matter that is an obstacle for you in becoming closer to a 5? Right? So I'm not saying, hey, this one thing is going to jump you from a 1 to a 5 or whatever it is, but could you identify what are those questions? And so we put a QR code on the screen and said, hey, scan the QR code, submit your question anonymously, and then we had over 100 questions come in that particular Sunday. And that Sunday night, we started kind of going through them, and by the end of business Monday, I had put them into some categories and figured out what we were going to teach on for the next 6 weeks or so. And just hopefully answering as many of those questions as we could through talks on Sunday morning. And so that's what we've been about for these last few weeks, and we'll continue that through the month of May. Today's question is a really difficult one. In fact, it's probably, I don't remember the exact number, I believe it's the most popular question outside of the ones that didn't fall into a category. They were all unique individual questions. Either way, there's a lot of people that have asked the question. And honestly, not even just on the QR code questionnaire. It's asked all of the time. In fact, it's something that honestly I would be surprised if almost everyone in the room hasn't asked the question at some point in their life. This week's question: if God is a loving God, why do bad things happen to good people? This question was phrased, I don't know, a dozen different ways. A lot of times it would be a very specific ask. This happened in my life. How could God allow that to happen? This happened to my child. How could God allow that to happen? A lot of very specific instances. I want to begin this talk with an admission. I think when we look at the question and how to answer it, I want to make sure that you know that if you are experiencing the results of evil right now in your life, that if you are the person going through the bad things, there is no discussion I can have with you today that's going to make you feel better. In fact, my aim this morning is not to solve the anguish that you're experiencing or feeling, because the words that I have are not the solution for that. Nothing's going to make you this morning feel better about pain, suffering, and loss. However, what I do hope to do is to give you a frame of reference to bring a little bit more understanding of how and why. When we look at the problem of evil and God, this is the argument that we have, the logical argument. Premise 1. If there is a God, he is omnipotent and perfectly good. Required. Those two things are required if he's going to be God. Number 2, a perfectly good being will never allow any morally bad state to occur if he can prevent it. Right? If it's perfectly good, no chance that he can allow a morally bad state to take place if he's good, if he can prevent it. Number 3, an omnipotent being can prevent the occurrence of all morally bad states. Right? If he's omnipotent, he can do it. There's nothing off limits. Number 4, there is at least one morally bad state. It's the reality, right? You just look around, there is a morally bad state. The conclusion, therefore, there is no God. Now, this argument, it makes perfect sense. Most of the time, it's not displayed this way in your conversations with people. They just simply jump to the reality of things, right? A child was abused, right? And a child was abused for extended seasons of time. No one stepped in. No one did anything. Maybe no one knew it was happening. And all of a sudden, it comes to light. And what are we going to do with that, right? We're saying, hey, well, actually, someone did know about it. God knew about it. And God could have done something about it, and God didn't do anything about it. And therefore, God can't exist, because if God did exist, he wouldn't have allowed it to happen. I'm rereading a book called Night. It's a book about the Holocaust written by Eli. I can't say his last name. I say Wiesel, but it's not Wiesel. It's different pronunciation, Hungarian. And over again in the book, he's talking about how every step in the Holocaust for his family, as a Jewish family, that they couldn't believe that they were 2 and 3 years into the war and nobody knew about the concentration camps. That people were showing up for the first time in concentration camps. And when they got there, they were like, what is this? And they're like, you don't know? Nobody knows this is happening? Like, nobody's talking about this being a reality? Like, we had no clue. They were just like, hey, are you an electrician, a plumber? You got a specialized thing? Hop on this train. We're going to put you to work. They had no clue. Yet there's a God. He for sure knew. So why didn't he do anything about it? Well, that's the big question. To kind of dive into this, I want to break it down into a couple smaller questions and attempt to bring some discussion about an answer to each one of them. The first question is this: how much bad are we okay with? So if we say, hey, if there's a loving God, why do bad things happen to good people? The first question we've got to unpack is, how much bad are we okay with? Now let's define the bad things, right? So the first, we get the big ones. Murder, that's no good, right? Nobody wants to be murdered. Innocent people, death, sickness, cancer, car accidents, child abuse, violence, genocide. Man, those are rape. All those are big headliners. We don't want any of that for anybody. 100% across the board. And that's an easy one to get to, right? Yeah, this shouldn't exist. Stop this from happening. But my follow-up question is, how bad is too bad to qualify for the list? Are we saying, hey, we don't want anyone else to stub their toe? Like thou shalt not stub toes. I'm okay with that. When's the last time you stubbed your toe? I can see it happening in my brain right now. I'm never wearing flip-flops again. I'm just kidding. I'm putting them on this week. How about you lost your keys? Lost your keys? That's on the level of bad, that's no fun. Especially when you're already 10 minutes late and that's when you realize you've lost your keys. And all of a sudden you start throwing things, you're pretending you're looking under things, but really you're just throwing stuff. You know the keys aren't under there. You're just slamming stuff against the wall. You know what I'm talking about? And then you call your spouse, like, hey, where'd you put my keys? And then she responds, you're a grown man, you should know. And not that it's happened to me. I'm just saying that that's what would happen if that were to happen to people. You know what I'm saying? That's what would happen, I think. Or maybe it's a flat tire on the interstate. That's no good. A sinus infection. Those burn, you know? I can feel it right now. How bad? How bad? Or is it that we want zero bad to happen? If that's the question, well, how do we protect you from evil? Because evil's here. How do we protect you from evil? Do we put you in a bubble? I don't know. Ask Peachtree City. How's that going? You know? I am on the Peachtree City Bubble Facebook page. There's plenty bad. Most of it has to do with golf carts. Yeah, we put ourselves in a bubble, in an isolation chamber. Is that going to protect us? Is that going to keep us safe? Maybe it's, not to isolate us, isolate them. Let's just get rid of bad, right? Second question we've got to discuss. What is a good person? Like we say, hey, why do bad things happen to good people? What is a good person? What qualifies us as good? How do we even know what good is? There's no God. How do we even know what good is? Is there a judge somewhere of goodness? Do we take a vote? If you can hit a baseball a mile, does that make you good? If you're a really great actor, bring people to tears on the big screen, does that make you good? If you can dunk a basketball from the free throw line, does that make you good? If you can memorize all the books of the Bible, does that make you good? If you know all the Bible stories, does that make you good? How do we know what good is? And what makes us good? What if someone has a really good public life, just impeccable, but their private life is awful? Like a pillar in the community, just, wow, poster child, but has child porn on their computer and their phone. So are we going to start inspecting everyone's secrets, thoughts, crevices, and cracks, just to verify that, well, we've set up a rule. Bad things can't happen to good people. So before we unleash this badness on you, we need to verify that you are a good person. So what's the line? That's a really difficult question. But maybe the answer isn't in defining bad things or defining good people. Maybe that's not the answer at all. Maybe the problem is actually the existence of evil altogether. Like maybe we're looking at this from the wrong angle because we're looking at it on the backside, right? Like this is already a thing. Bad things are happening to good people, right? Like that's the reason the question exists. And maybe that's the problem, is we're trying to solve it and the problem is too late, right? We can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. It's out. And so we're trying to figure out, well, how do you fix it now, right? When honestly, the question isn't how do we fix it now? The question is, why didn't we fix it in the beginning? Like, why didn't we stop evil before evil got started? Like, that's the better question. Like, it's not so much that I have a difficulty understanding how God could fix my situation. It's that I have a difficulty understanding why God allowed the situation to happen in the first place. Long before I ever took my first breath, let's go back to the Revolutionary War and the Civil War and slavery. Let's go back to the Egyptians. Let's go back to the beginning of time itself, wherever it started. Let's go back then. Start then. If God is God, why does he even allow evil as an option? Who does he think he is? And after all, didn't he say when he created us? And at least that's what the Bible says, that he looked at creation and he said, and it's good. And so if he looked at creation and it was good, why in the world would you allow anything bad? Why would we do that? Well, the Bible tells us that God believes that he is love, which just makes my argument stronger, right? If God is love, we see it a couple different times. At 1 John 4, 8 and 16, both say these three words: God is love. Not God reminds me of love, not God feels kind of like love, not any of that, but no, just those three words: God is love. And so again, that just strengthens my argument. So if God is love, why in the world are these things happening to me and the people that I care about? Maybe the issue is our definition and understanding of love. I looked it up just in case you needed a reminder. If you were to Google, define love, this is what it's going to say: an intense feeling of deep affection. So God is a loving God. If God is an intense feeling of deep affection, why do bad things happen to good people? All of a sudden, I'm not sure we're asking the right question if that's the definition of love. Because an intense feeling of deep affection doesn't actually tell me that God should do anything different. The Bible defines a picture of love like this. Jesus actually says the greatest love is to lay down your life for a friend. That's how Jesus sees love. And Jesus actually lives that out himself, lays down his own life for all of us. But again, that brings us to the place, why did it even have to? Why does someone need to lay down their life for a friend? Like, the only time that happens is when something bad is happening. And so why do we even need this kind of love to lay down my life for someone else? Why do we need that? It just shouldn't be. Does anyone love puppies? Okay, that's good. Let me get a hand raised. If you're a puppy person, all right, cool, great. That's good. A lot of people. So there's this new thing. It's taking the world by storm. This new thing. It's not puppies. It's called a house cow. You ever heard of a house cow? Cool. If just in case you haven't seen one, I've got a video of one. We're going to watch it.
Do you need a house cow?
Do you need a house cow? Yeah, I get asked for a house cow by my wife once a week. Yeah, it's very regular that we have these discussions that begin with, you know what we need? What? A house cow. No, we don't. However, I will tell you that I have seen that exact video hundreds and hundreds of times. In fact, my feed knows that this house cow, because Brooke talks about these house cows all the time. It just knows. And so I'll be scrolling through, and all of a sudden, here it comes. This is the exact same video. The music starts, the little voice starts, right? House cow. But here's the thing. Every single time I watch this video, I watch it to the end. Like, I already know what's going to happen, but I'm drawn to it. I want to see the close-up of the house cow, because in this video, I'm almost convinced. Now, I know that what comes out of that thing's rear end is not going to convince me, right? That's not going to be fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you teach a cow where to go to the bathroom? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that's going to undo it for me. But every time I watch it, I know cows are not all that relatable, but dogs are. Let's go back to my first question, the puppy question. When Brooke graduated college in 2008, I got her a puppy. His name was Tonka. got a picture of him. He was teeny tiny when we got him. So I took that picture. It's not a great picture because it's kind of blurry, but I put my water bottle down because I always wanted to remember just how teeny tiny he was. I mean, he was just itty bitty, you know. Tonka was one of his favorite things to do was we have these, what do they call windows? We have windows, and the sun comes in the window and it shines down. And like he likes to like lay in those places, you know what I'm saying? I took a second picture of him laying down in the window. I don't have it here, but I got on my floor and I took it with my camera, and he just was like staring at me like, "Do you need something?" And then he stuck his tongue out. I should have put it in. I should have. He sticks his tongue out like I'm busy. Move on, sir. And one of his favorite things to do though is this. He just like sits on the porch and he likes to look down at the driveway. And he's excited about whoever's going to come and be a part of it. And he lets you know he's excited by barking at you like he's going to eat you. But his mouth like is this big, so it doesn't work. That's the way he kind of chills. Now, here's the thing though. Love Tonka. His name is Tonka. I don't know, did I tell you that? Tonka. Like a Tonka truck. The thing is that, of course, when we got Tonka, because we love him so much, we put him in a cage, you know? And we put the puppy in the cage. And then we decided, you know what? We love this puppy so much, we actually don't want to let him out all that often. Every once in a while, I'll let him go in the sun, but then he goes back in the cage. I'll let him sit on the porch for a second, but let's put him back in the cage. And, 23 hours or so of his life, we keep him in the cage. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what we do when we love something, because we don't want them to get dirty. We don't want them to get lost in the woods. We don't want them to go through the emotional heartache of me throwing a ball and he can't pick it up because his mouth is too small and I picked the ball too big. We don't want them to experience that. So we keep the puppy in the cage, right? And the cage works great because I can open the cage and I can put some food in there and I can shut the cage back and he can eat the food while he's in the cage. And so he becomes nourished. And he eats up the food, and then when he's done, he can use the bathroom, but we got this special cage where we can just pull it out. It doesn't stink, and we put it outside, and it's fine. It's no problem. He can spend his whole life in the cage because that's what you do when you love something is you put it in a cage because it's so much better to be in the cage than actually to live life. That makes no sense. He can get hit by a car. He can get run over. He can get lost in the woods. He can get ticks. He get worms. There's all kind of things out there that can happen to him, but because we love him so much, we keep him in the cage. Isn't that what you do with your dogs? Well, you don't? Well, maybe you don't actually know how to love a dog then. Maybe you actually aren't all that loving. Why would you put it in a position to have something bad happen to it if you love them? Obviously, we actually didn't keep Tonka in a cage. But it makes you think, doesn't it? In January 21st, 2011, that's my yard there. There's 538 feet from the street to the front, a little porch there. And this was taken in spring or summer because everything's green. In January, it was brown. Like everything's brown. Those two fields are all just dead grass. It's brown. And Tonka was laying in the middle of the yard in January. It was an unseasonably just super warm day. My family was outside. I was coming home from work. And they were out playing in the yard. And Tonka was there. And my daughter was in the back of my wife's car getting something. And I saw her as I was coming up the driveway. And I thought to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scare Hadley. I'm going to pull up behind her and beat my horn. And she's just going to freak out, right? So that's what I was doing. She was 7 at the time. Right, so in my mind, that's what's happening. And so I'm watching Hadley the whole time, trying to make sure she's not going to turn around. And so I'm driving up the driveway, and I'm watching Hadley. Then all of a sudden, my wife shoots up, and she puts her hand up, and she screams, but I can't hear her. I got music going, my windows are up. And then I felt it. I hit him. And so immediately I threw it in park, and I jumped out, and I looked, and he was behind me. And so I ran down, and I went to go pick him up, but every time I touched him, he just screamed. And so I yelled to get some towels, and there's blood, and so we got him wrapped up, and I took him to the hospital as fast as I could, and that's where he died. If only I had kept him in a cage, nothing bad could have happened to him. I've struggled with this for 2 years, and I honestly wasn't a dog person. I wasn't an animal person at all. It's fine. And it absolutely is one of the worst days of my life. However, the question becomes, would I trade the accident for a life of him being in a cage? No. Because I really did love the dog. You see, I realized that a padded room in a cage is actually worse than bad things happening to good people. In fact, what we find that the cause of this whole thing is this idea of we've been given the opportunity to choose. And we've been given free will. And when we begin to look at free will, we begin to uncover that the reason we have it isn't God's inability to see that evil's coming, but it's because God made a decision. Because he is love, God had to decide, how do I put love into motion in the most perfect and pure way? And his conclusion was, it's not really love. I'm not really being me if I create something and put it in a cage. That the purest form of love would be to create and then give them a choice. And so we ask, how could God be a loving God and allow bad things to happen to good people? The loving God is evident in the fact that we have a choice. Now that puts us in some tension, though. And here's the tension. The beauty of humanity is that our decisions affect those around us. And at the same time, the downfall of humanity is that our decisions affect those around us. And that both of those things are true at the very same time. And so while we have this loving God that's put this love in motion, that we get to experience the greatest form of love, and that he gives us an opportunity to live outside of the bubble, the padded wall, the cage. That is one of the greatest expressions of love he could possibly give and put in our direction. That at the same time, we realize that, man, I'm not actually equipped to make incredible decisions all the time. In fact, some of my incredible decisions that I think are right are actually absolutely wrong. And it doesn't just impact me, it impacts a lot of people around me. It's the beauty and the downfall of all humanity. So what do we do with that? There's this hope that we would say, God, okay, I'll meet you halfway. But haven't we had enough love? Can't we move on? Can we move on? Now that we've experienced, can we move on? Isn't there a way that we can, like, if we're just being honest, God, isn't there a way to just get rid of all the evil? Like, can't we just Like, do we even have to qualify them as some bad and a little bad and lots of bad? Can we just get rid of all of it? Is there any chance that we can get on the same page with this God? Like, that's what I want. That's what I feel in my heart. I think it's what my parents want, and my friends want, and my spouse wants, my kids want, and my friends want, my neighbors want, my community wants. Like, there's very few people that are actually interested in just propagating evil over and over again. And honestly, you can get rid of them too, right? But everybody else, like, we're on the same page. And God is looking back at all of us, and he's saying, Jesus. Like, that's how I'm doing it. You and I actually are on the same page. And God's saying, I want what you want. That the greatest way I could show love was to create you and then give you a choice. But I'm still sick in my stomach just like you are. And so I'm actually have a plan that is in motion to do exactly what you're asking me to do. Get rid of all the evil, every piece and part of it. You and I are tracking together. It's just not yet. We're just in the tension of the not yet. That we are aligned in our heart and our desire for our world, but we are stuck in the middle of not yet. Now, for that, we actually have a couple of thoughts that the Bible gives us to help us with the tension of the not yet. The first one comes in Romans chapter 8, verse 18. He says this, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. It's an admission that suffering is a part of the human experience, even if it's not justified or caused, even if we're the victim of it, that it's undeserved. Yet somehow this view of suffering has matured to a place as the author has gotten to know Jesus more and more, and he's come to a place that says, hey, here's the thing. I actually have begun to discover that what is waiting on the other side of the not yet causes any amount of suffering on this side of the not yet to begin to pale in comparison to what is waiting. And so I can ride out this tension even in the midst of suffering because there's a hope of what's coming. And the more you find a relationship with Jesus, the better you get to know the not yet. In other words, what we're simply being asked for is a bit of patience because God is moving. Now, there's some patience that is asked for. However, there's also a little bit of tension that comes with this patience. Because while there's a not yet tension that exists, because there's a completion piece that's not quite here yet, where God actually does everything that we're asking him to do in terms of getting rid of evil, right? All of that is coming. However, God is not just sitting on his hands waiting around for that to happen. God has actually given the very power of the resurrection of Jesus, the number 5 over here, right? 5 power, like on the scale, 1 to 5. This kind of resurrection of Jesus, that kind of power, he's placed it in followers of Jesus. Not just random followers of Jesus, all followers of Jesus. And so inside of us, we have this tension of what God wants to happen in our world, yet the realization of the reality of suffering. And we have that inside of us for us to actually do something about the suffering we see. And so when we're in the midst of something and we get this little twinge on the inside that, hey, something isn't right here, you know what we ought to do? We ought to say something. If we see something, we ought to say something. We ought to engage it. Instead of saying, you know what, this is not my thing. I don't want to have to go through the paperwork. I'm not sure I actually want to have to talk to an officer. I don't think I want to get involved in that kind of drama. I don't want to do those things. And then we're going to have the audacity to say, God, why don't you do something about suffering? And he's looking at you and saying, I put it right in front of you. And you said it was too inconvenient for you to engage. And so when we have opportunities, when we see injustice, when we see suffering, when we see things that are not right, then we step in with the very power and presence of God that exists inside of those who call themselves followers of Jesus. And we help manage the tension of the not yet. We can't just sit by and watch suffering happen and just say, well, eventually when we all get to heaven. No. So patience, but also a bit of persistence. The second thought we get that helps us wrestle with this, also same chapter of Romans. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. All things, suffering and good, all things. In other words, there's a promise that even in this tension of the not yet that we exist in, he said, I can even use your suffering for good if you'll let me, right? If you're going to submit your suffering to my purpose, I can use it. He's not saying he's going to solve it or get rid of it. He's saying, but I will leverage it for good. God wants what you want, and we will get it. Just not yet. And I realize for any of you who right now are in the midst of suffering, that doesn't help you at all. And for that, I am enormously sorry. I wish I had something better for you, but I don't. I will tell you this, though, that there are people that are in this room and that were here at the 9 and that watch online and that are out of town this week but will be here next week, that the Holy Spirit of God, the Spirit of the resurrection of Jesus, exists inside of them. And if there's a way for us to help in your suffering, we can help manage the tension of not yet. We have a tent right outside. It's blue. It's called a Next Steps tent. And that's a great conversation to have. Whether it's a follow-up on this, or maybe you've got more, like I need more resources, I need more reading, I need a podcast, I need something, I need more about this. Go there and let's start the conversation. I realize I've gone 38 minutes or something, I can't do math with the screen, 38 minutes or something, and I know that 38 minutes didn't just change your life if you're in the midst of it. No expectation that's what was going to happen. And so I get, man, you might need to dig in a little bit more. So go to the blue tent and say, hey, put my name on a list. Here's my thing. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm searching for. And we'll take some time this week. Our staff will dig into it, and we'll see if we can't get you equipped to take a next step, to look more into it, to study more into it, to read a little bit more, to listen a little bit more about it. We'd love to equip you with a resource. Our takeaway is just that last line. God wants what you want, and we will get it. Just not yet. God wants what you want, and we will get it. Just not yet.